Okay, if you've spent any time in a big city, you know the scene. A line snaking out the door of a Sweetgreen. It's become the lunch spot, almost a cultural icon, right? It looks like a total success story. But here's the twist. Behind all those packed stores, there's a wild financial secret. The company is actually losing millions. So let's get into it and unpack the strange paradox of Sweetgreen.
It really all starts right here with this number. And you've probably felt this yourself. You go in, you build that perfect kale Caesar, maybe add some avocado, and bam, the price hits almost 17 bucks. Now, when you're paying that much for a salad, you're probably thinking the company making it must be absolutely rolling in dough, right?
Well, that's where we find the central mystery of Sweetgreen. What we see as customers, the packed stores, the lines down the block, that tells one story. But what investors see, that's a totally different picture. We're talking about a company that, in a recent quarter, lost over $27 million. So how on earth can a brand this popular be burning through so much cash?
To really get to the bottom of the problem, we first have to understand the hype. Because Sweetgreen didn't just want to sell salads to office workers. Oh no, they had a much, much bigger ambition in mind.
So the story kicks off back in 2007 with three college students in DC. And they were smart. They were super early adopters of technology, using mobile ordering to get people through those crazy lunch rushes way faster than anybody else. They were so dialed in that when the pandemic hit, their digital business just exploded. All of this momentum led to a massive blockbuster IPO in late 2021. And this quote right here, this really gets to the heart of it. This was never just about premium salads. The founders literally said their goal was to be the next McDonald's, a global fast food giant just built on a healthier model. That was the huge vision they sold to investors. And you know what? Investors bought it, big time. Right after going public, Sweetgreen's valuation shot up to over $6 billion. $6 billion. It was the absolute peak of the hype, that moment when everyone seemed to believe this salad company was the undisputed future of food. But that high point, it wasn't going to last. So that massive valuation created these enormous expectations. And to understand why they just couldn't meet them, we need to peel back the curtain a little and look at all the hidden costs that are baked into every single one of those pricey salads. Now, here's what's really fascinating. The problem isn't actually the stores themselves. According to analysts, your average Sweetgreen location does, in fact, make money. So that brings up the million-dollar question, or in this case, the multi-million-dollar question. If the restaurants are profitable, where is all that cash vanishing? In this chart right here, this reveals the culprit. So yeah, food and labor are a big chunk, for sure, but look at that surprisingly huge slice for corporate and tech overhead. See, Sweetgreen doesn't run like a simple restaurant chain. It runs more like a tech company, and that comes with massive expenses that have nothing to do with the actual salad line.
Let's break down the why. A typical fast food place, they use giant food distributors and big centralized kitchens to keep costs way down. Sweetgreen, they do the exact opposite. They're sourcing directly from farms, they're prepping everything fresh in these tiny in-store kitchens, and they've poured millions into building apps, AI, and data analytics. It is a fundamentally more expensive way to run a business.
So, here's the bottom line. Their unprofitability really boils down to these three things. The very elements that make you love the brand, the farm-fresh ingredients, the food made right there in front of you, the slick tech, those are the exact same things that are draining their bank account. And this all brings us to the collision course. This is the point where that expensive, ambitious vision slams right into the harsh realities of the public market, a shaky economy, and some very impatient investors. After that incredible IPO, the ride got really, really rocky. The stock price just plummeted. Then, in 2024, there was a little glimmer of hope when the company started talking more about automation. But the struggles kept coming, with analysts even projecting that sales would decline into late 2025. And the numbers, they're pretty stark. The stock dropped more than 80%. Sales in existing stores fell for 2 quarters in a row, and the number of customers coming in actually dropped. On top of all their internal cost problems, they got slammed by inflation and a much slower return to office than anyone expected. The painful result? Layoffs for 10% of their corporate staff. So with all that pressure mounting, what's the big plan? I mean, how does a company with this kind of a problem actually turn things around?
Well, for Sweetgreen, the answer might just be found in the very thing that's costing them so much money: technology.
So, what's the actual strategy to right the ship here? The company basically has a three-part plan, but one piece of it in particular stands out as a potential massive game changer.
Okay, first, they want to scale up, and I mean aggressively. They want to basically quadruple their store count to 1,000 locations. Second, they're trying to lock in customers with loyalty programs. But it's this third piece, automation, that is their biggest and most important bet.
And this is it. It's called the Infinite Kitchen. It's a technology that Sweetgreen got its hands on when it bought a robotics company called Spice. And what it is, essentially, is a robotic assembly line designed specifically to make salads.
The advantages here are pretty obvious and honestly powerful. These robots can put together a totally custom salad in under 3 minutes. And a store with an infinite kitchen can operate with a third fewer employees. This is a direct attack on their massive labor costs, and it has the potential to dramatically, fundamentally improve their profit margins.
Now, you might have heard Sweetgreen claiming they recently had their first profitable quarter. This is where we have to be a little careful. They're using a metric called EBITDA, which is super popular with tech startups. Think of it as a way of measuring profitability that conveniently leaves out a lot of major real-world costs, things like stock compensation for executives and restructuring costs. It definitely shows progress, but it's not quite the same as being truly sustainably profitable.
And this leads to a fascinating strategic choice. If this automation actually works and starts generating real savings, what do? Do they harvest that margin, keep the extra profits and finally become a stable business? Or do they weaponize it, use those savings to lower their prices, crush their competitors, and truly go for that McDonald's of their generation title? It's a huge question. Which leaves us right here with the ultimate question. Sweetgreen is playing the long game. They're betting that these massive investments in technology and automation will eventually pay off big. But Wall Street, investors, they are notoriously impatient. They want profits, and they want them now. So the billion-dollar question is, can this expensive, forward-thinking vision survive long enough to actually prove itself?